because some brands have major fans. I mean, your community wants to support you, but how can they best do that? I mean, even internally, I think it's fascinating how many organizations, you can really tell the difference between those that invest in teaching their people how to use LinkedIn, how to use social to grow the brand, versus those that are fearful of it.
Obsesif, ngobrol seru, skills for first jobbers. Friends, good news for you. This month, we're going to broadcast the special collaboration podcast episodes of Media by KG Media and Asia Pacific Media Forum 2022, which were just held at Bali Nusa Dua Convention Center on October the 20th till the 21st. With the theme APMF Metamorphosis Thoughts, we will listen to the experiences and insights of APMF speakers from various industries to inspire you to live beyond, make changes, take action, and unlock possibilities. So make sure to follow the Obsesif podcast, turn on your notifications, and don't forget to rate us on Spotify. So, in this episode, Suliana Andiko, head of Product Media Podcast Network by KG Media, will have a chat with Shama Hyder. She's a founder and CEO of Zen Media. She's a visionary business strategist for the digital age. Her Zen Media is the only new media agency to be honored by both the White House and the United Nations as a top 100 company in North America. She has been named the Zen Master of Marketing and the Millennial Master of the Universe by Fast Company. Shama was one of the main speakers at APMF 2022, talking about the transformations in the midst of chaos, including how people now are the media itself, what kind of strategy brands should do, and in this podcast, she also shared about the importance of thought leadership. Without further ado, let's hear more about what she's about to share with us. Here you go!
Can I call you Shama or?
Please.
Okay. How are you?
I'm doing well. Glad to be here.
Okay, nice. How's the flight from the US?
It is long.
It is long, right?
It is a long flight, but I mean, it's wonderful to be here.
Okay. So have you recovered from the? Have you any jet lag arriving here or like?
Oh yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yes. By the time I'm over the jet lag, it'll be time to go back again.
Exactly right. Okay. So you're in APMF, right? I saw your session earlier that this is your first APMF, and how was it? Like the situation, like the atmosphere of the crowd. How do you feel about it?
Great conference. I think it's wonderful. I think APMF, what they're doing is such a service for the industry, and bringing so many different people together. I think it's wonderful too. I've met students and seasoned veterans and meeting folks across the spectrum, and it's just such a great opportunity for people to network and learn from each other, not just from us on stage.
Okay, nice. And you're the founder of CEO of Zen Media, right? Can you tell us a bit more about what's Zen Media?
Sure.
Yeah.
So we're a PR marketing firm and predominantly work with B2B brands. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So any interesting interesting brand or case that you handle in Zen Media that you can actually share?
That's
more. So many meaningful for you.
Yeah, something meaningful for me. Well, one thing that I always think back to when there's such a fun campaign was for the YMCA.
Yeah.
And it was a turkey trot, which is this big walk essentially that they do for charity during the U.S. Thanksgiving. And we needed to create buzz for it because it does tend to be a well turned out event. And one of the things that we did, which was a lot of fun, was invite the Guinness World Book of Records. And had the highest number of people dressed up as turkeys in any given spot, and won the record for that. So that was it's just the first campaign that comes to mind as you asked about it.
Okay. So what kind of the challenges when you design a campaign for a brand like that?
It's interesting because I think more and more the competition has gotten so strong, right? For anything, I mean, you're really competing not just with other events, but with Netflix, with YouTube, with everything else that someone could be doing with their time. So I do think the bar is higher. I think it's also really important to understand the goals. For a brand, who are they trying to get in front of? Because they may not be trying to impress everybody. They're not trying to reach massive people. A lot of the brands we work with, they have a very select group of individuals, whether that's CTOs, CIOs, CFOs, whatever it is, that they're trying to get in front of. It's a specific audience that they want to reach. And so understanding that audience, understanding the current landscape and kind of where the bar is, I think that's always the most challenging thing of any campaign.
Okay. And then related to what you said in the conference, in your session specifically, is like you said that people are now the media. So how do you use that challenge and create relevancy with people now are the media?
Yeah, great question. So I think part of it is giving them, right? Like, so UGC is nothing new, user-generated content, but also really bringing people into the fold, letting them run with an idea, or sometimes when you see an idea, being able to bring it into the fold yourself and doing something with it. I think that's always a fun way to do it too. It's so just the idea that any idea can go viral today, right? Like, I think
exactly.
The flip side to being competitive is that there's just so much opportunity for reach and amplification, and so being able to allow people to be able to use their social media platforms and sometimes just guiding them on how to do it right, I think can be
guiding them actually.
Yeah, of course, because I think that's an important part of it is yes, you have your message, but what's the best way? Because some brands have major fans. I mean, your community wants to support you, but how can they best do that? I mean, even internally, I think it's fascinating how many organizations, you can really tell the difference between those that invest in teaching their people how to use LinkedIn, how to use social to grow the brand, versus those that are fearful of it.
Oh, okay, interesting. And then with all the current situation now, and then like the news talk about a lot about recession in the next year, how do you see the trend marketing will shift, like in for brands? What kind of creativity that you expect to service?
So I think the bar will be higher for creativity.
Will be really higher.
For creativity, like you said, because I think when you hear the term recession, it's always like, oh, we have to hunker down, we have to be more scrappy, and so I do think you see more creativity in general, right? I think the recession often produces some of the most creative campaigns because you are maybe restricted in resources or things that you could do,
budget and stuff.
But I think the worst thing I think companies can do during a recession is cut back or get scared, because it is such an opportunity, right? In the marketplace, there are bargains to be had. And so I think from a media buying perspective, from a media perspective, and before what you could do was you could have so creative and throw a lot of money at it and amplify it. You can't do that anymore. I think what's much more important is that creative has to be strong, if not stronger, and the no amount of paid is really going to make mediocre creative successful.
Mediocre creative successful? Okay. Exactly. Okay, interesting. And you talk about also thought leadership in your podcast. Like, how do you define it? I'm really interested in the topic.
So thought leadership is really this idea that, look, at any given brand, people are going to be more interested in individuals than brands, right? So the idea is to provide value for your audience, and thought leadership specifically relates to getting leaders and holding them to a higher standard. So I think this is the other part of it, where leadership used to be like the more successful you are, the higher up you are, the harder it is to get to, right? You have so many layers between you and your constituents. Now it's the opposite. I think the more important you are as a leader, the more you have to be accessible to people, the more you have to be relatable, the more you have to be reachable. So we think for all these reasons, whether you're trying to attract talent or trying to grow your brand, very important to establish the thought leadership for leaders at the company and showcase that. So it can't just be your actions, it's the perception, it's the communication around those actions.
Okay. Like, how do you see that gonna significantly impact the brand as a company, either as a company or as employer of choice?
It's everything.
It's everything.
It's everything. I mean, who do you want to work for? An individual or a name, right? It's the people. I mean, it's the people behind a company. So the more that you can tell that story, the more you can showcase the leadership of a company, the better the opportunities.
Okay, one last question that I want to ask is like about your session. So you talk about being exposed to repetition and then create revenue, but before that, there's a trigger, right? How do you like elaborate that into exploration and evaluation?
Yeah, I mean, the trigger point is that someone is in the market looking for what you have to offer, right? There's a trigger. They have a problem. They have something that your product or service solves. So the trigger is not actually something you get to control. It's the buyer controls their trigger. And once that goes off, however it does, and they're looking now for your product or service, they've officially entered the messy middle. And they're exploring services, they're evaluating them, and at the end of the day, what they choose, a lot of that is based on which brand they're exposed to, because exposure leads to trust, and trust leads to business.
Okay. I'm really interested in how you communicate it like dynamic, and then that the trigger is the buyer control. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Maybe any last advice messages for media or marketer from your side?
Yes, I would say get ready for a new era, because the idea of tracking people, the idea that everything is measurable, that's just not going to be the future.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. Okay. Now take notes, that our marketer.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much for your session. Really interested in your session in conference. So hope for success in your endeavor.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Wow, that was a super insightful story from Shama Hyder. Hope you can learn from it, also like what I did. Anyway, we'll still have more special episodes of Obsesif Podcast with APMF 2022. You can check it out on Spotify, Obsesif Podcast, and Media by KG Media YouTube channel. So make sure to stay tuned for more podcast episode by following us on our social media at Media by KG Media, or you can hit the button link in the description below. So I'm Ellen Billion as your host today, signing out, and see you on the next episode. Bye! Thank you for listening to Obsesif Podcast. See you later!